Um, Here, as the Russian army moved closer to Poland, the Germans decided to liquidate the special ghetto clearing unit of which Halberstam was a member. All the prisoners were taken to a field outside of Warsaw, told to undress and stand near open pits, where soldiers prepared to machine gun them. At the last moment, however, a car sped into the field. A high-ranking officer jumped out and communicated the special order from Berlin to stop the execution and send the prisoners to the Dachau concentration camp, where they were needed as slave laborers. This unexpected reprieve, however, led to a brutal death march. For the next week, the prisoners were forced by SS soldiers wielding wooden clubs and steel bars to march 21 miles a day at top speed. In the blazing July heat, the emaciated prisoners were deprived of food and water and allowed to rest only at night. Those who couldn't keep up were shot. On the third day, strained to the length of their endurance, the group was finally brought to rest for the night in a field surrounded by SS officers. As the guards slept, the Rebbe passed the word around, quote, "Everyone should dig beneath himself. God's salvation comes in the blink of an eye." Each prisoner began to dig with his fingers, spoons, or pieces of wood. Remarkably, each found water and small springs began to pop up everywhere. So you had like Nur HaKodesh, quenching everyone's thirst and giving them new life. Many years later, the Rebbe explained why he himself didn't drink from the water, because the date was the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, a traditional day of fasting to commemorate the destruction of the temple. This guy just walked however long, and he's still fasting on Tisha B'Av. On the fifth day,
he can't not.
I know.
Yeah.
On the fifth day, the surviving marchers were packed into cattle cars for the rest of the journey to Dachau. Over the next few days, many succumbed to the overcrowding, lack of water, stench, and heat in the cattle cars. Of the 6,000 that set on the death march, less than 2,000 made it to Dachau alive. The Rebbe was one of the survivors. Dude, when I read these kind of things, we're not going through that right now. We're not in camps. We're not being surrounded by, as like these schmucks on Twitter like to say, when you say, they force us to take the vax. They always say nobody forced you, right? And they that nobody came with a gun to our house and forced us, right? They did it in a different way. But however, when I hear of these things, when I read all these kind of stories, and I read basically the extent of which, how should I put this? Extremity can occur in the world. Extreme situations, evil can occur. I think to myself, I'm shocked when people accuse me of being an extremist. You understand what I mean? I'm just assuming the worst because I know the worst can happen. Meaning, not that I'm a pessimist, not that I'm paranoid. I'm assuming that, like, I'm automatically assuming like that this guy who got tackled, it's the vaccine. Why? Because it probably is, but even if I have no proof, I know that I know history. And in history, it's always the worst thing you can think of, or it's the worst thing you can't think of.
Yeah.
So it must be that, not the medium thing, not the moderate thing, not the come on, let's not go crazy thing. It's the fucking worst thing. It is. That's the MS. That must be the MS.
Can I add to what you just said?
Это должно так быть.
May I?
Please, yeah.
I was thinking, like, to me, the whole system of cars, because it was a car day.
Yeah.
Thinking this whole like leasing system, right? And the way cars are designed now with kill switches, and it's all digital and electronic, right?
Yeah.
So easy to turn off and control, right? And most people, like you said, will be like, that's not, nobody's going to do that. Like, you're being paranoid.
Yeah.
The reality, folks, is like this. Somebody is sitting there thinking, how can we control everybody in their transportation and their cars? Control them as tyrants in the most tyrannical way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on top of that, make them feel like they're getting a great service and deal. How do we make tyranny look like service and something pleasant? When it comes to controlling people's transportation, like, they don't own the car, right? They pay for the usage of the car. We can take it away anytime for some trumped up whatever. We could find some little technicality. We can also turn the car off if we don't like it. We can also, nowadays, you can probably control the car and make them crash into the side, no problem. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, we can make them feel like they're getting a great deal. That's what I'm trying to say is like this, folks. That's how things are. That's how this infrastructure is planned and created by
Yeah.
people who are trying to think, how can we control you entirely? And then they produce this
Yeah.
whole car leasing thing.
What I don't understand is when you tell people these kind of things, these kind of things, their reaction is just like, oh, come on. You know, I've heard like friends, well, why would someone want to, oh, you're being this. Why would somebody want to do this?
Guys,
oh, come on. Oh, come
if
on.
you're
Oh,
saying
oh,
that,
come on,
if
shit.
anybody listening is saying that, or if any of your friends say it like that, look, the reality is that you guys are ignorant
Not ignorant,
morons.
naive, lulled to sleep, naive.
That's just potato, tomato.
Potato, yeah.
So basically, if you didn't study history at all, you've learned nothing about the pattern of human history
Yeah. Which is
at all.
which is just like what
Which is
I like to call sickitude.
rent.
What?
A history book is a boring movie you didn't want to rent at the video store when we had video stores, if you remember, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of like, oh, here's a book of things that happened the way they really happened. That's a little dry. Let me get this romantic comedy. Okay.
I think that people never can. I've gotten to a sense of like people read history books and they've gotten themselves to a place, especially after this whole like the fall of the Soviet Union, we got into this kind of collective space of like, okay, so like the worst is over. They got themselves into a place where, you know, we have creature comforts, and because we have all the creature comforts we could ever have, even the poorest of us have like a cell phone, right? There's no possible way that we are going to ever experience all of this, you know, what I call movie-worthy drama and horror that humanity experienced before the year 1990 or whatever, you know, let's say whatever, pick a date, you know, when we got these creature. There's no, you know, that was them. Where it's almost like it happened in a different dimension or a parallel universe or like some other planet. We read about in the history books, we watch these movies of these famous people. It's almost as if some Hollywood writer invented the character of Gandhi or whomever, you know, and happens to be played by the guy, the British actor, what's his name? The bald, I forget his name.
Ben Kingsley.
Or somebody invented the character Muhammad Ali. He wasn't actually a real person, or whatever it is. And now we're here in this kind of boring world where we have all the creature comforts, and somehow we get our food in the supermarket, and we have the video games, and it's just boring. And we're in our houses, and we're in our cars where we lease for a really cheap price, and even when it's a little more expensive, it's still cheap as hell. And there's no way that anybody's in this state of affairs, state of being. There's no way that there's some guy sitting around. It's impossible that there could be a bunch of guys sitting around trying to kill us, half of us.
That
Maybe,
everything that we're enjoying is part of their plan.
Yeah, maybe what I just described are the things that are making them look at us, and for them to hate us because they see that we are basically wastes of space.